Hello everyone, it's Katie, the CSA coach with Shared Legacy Farms. I'm just going to take a second to sign in on my phone because today's tutorial is live in our CSA Facebook group. So I want to make sure that I can see any questions that anyone might have. Alright, so today's tutorial is on cabbage. Throughout the CSA season we get a large variety of different types of cabbage, so today we'll kind of be looking at two of them. Cabbage is something that really stores well, so it's not considered like a danger zone veggie. It can sit in your fridge usually for a couple months, especially these varieties here. So this week in our CSA box we got something called Caraflex cabbage. It looks like a cone like this. Sometimes we also just get like your standard red or green cabbage that looks more like a bulb like this, and these can really have a large variety of different sizes. So these varieties of cabbage will store 2 to 3 months in your crisper drawer in your refrigerator. The leaves might get a little yellow or damaged, and when you go to use the cabbage you just want to make sure that you peel off any wilted leaves or anything like that. The other type of cabbage is Chinese cabbage or Napa cabbage, and that one tends to not keep as long. That one just is good in the crisper drawer for a couple weeks. So no matter what, store your cabbage in your drawer. It doesn't need to be wrapped up. It's going to be good for a few months. These varieties, that Napa or Chinese cabbage, probably just a couple weeks. So when you go to use cabbage, you'll pull it out of your crisper drawer. You're going to rinse it off well. Before you rinse it off, I would pull away any of the wilted leaves. So that's what I have already done. So anything that looks damaged, just go ahead and peel that off. And then when you go to cut up the cabbage, depending on what you are using it for, you want to try to get the core out. So first, actually, we're going to look at this variety. So again, these can vary in size. I actually weighed this one because I was curious. This other huge cabbage that I got here, this actually weighed like 3.5 pounds. So you can definitely do a lot when you get a larger cabbage like that. This small little guy, I figured we would make what's called cabbage steaks with. So cabbage can be eaten raw or cooked. We'll talk about some different recipes. We have a great ebook that will be linked in the comments below this video that will provide you with some of those recipes in addition to some other ones. So this little one, we're going to make what's called cabbage steaks with. I've got my oven preheated to 400, and this is a super easy method, super easy side dish. So when I go to use this cabbage for cabbage steaks, I'm just going to cut off this large core here at the bottom, but I'm going to be cautious not to cut up too far into that cabbage. So for most cabbage dishes, if we were going to stir fry it or slice it up for like a stir fry, we are probably going to want to cut the core out. But when we are making cabbage steaks, because we want the cabbage to kind of stay intact and hold together, I'm actually going to leave this center core in to kind of hold it together a little bit more. So I'm just going to take this whole cabbage. I'm actually going to cut it in half here. So you can see that core kind of holds all those leaves together. And I'm just going to make about 1-inch slices here, being cautious. And these are probably going to take like 20 to 30 minutes to cook. So I'm going to make 2 right now. I'm going to use the rest of this cabbage for some other stuff that we're going to do today. Like I said, I already have my oven preheated. I am going to grab a little bit of olive oil and just brush it across the tops of these. And let me grab a little bowl here. You could also use some smashed garlic on top of these. So today I'm just going to use a little bit of olive oil. Rub it on those. I'm going to put it back here on my sheet with parchment paper. I'm going to put a little bit of salt and pepper on this side. And then I'm going to flip them over. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. A little bit of olive oil. Again, you could use some garlic on top would be really nice. I didn't grab any garlic out to smash it. I used it for some of the other recipes today, so a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I'm just going to pop these guys in the oven at 400. Again, it usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And we're going to turn them halfway through. So I'm just going to put this timer on for like 10, 11 minutes to kind of remind me. So obviously that's one way to cook cabbage. Cook cabbage, you can also cook it in soups, you can braise it, you can stir fry it. We're going to demo a little stir fry. Cabbage is a super versatile veggie, so it can be used in a large variety of recipes. I will say it sounds like across our Shared Legacy Farm CSA group, most people like to stir fry it with some bacon, a little bit of lard, maybe some onions, and that tends to be a good, fast, easy side dish. So that's one way to use cabbage, is to make the cabbage steaks. I do want to quick show you cutting open into this cone type cabbage. We're going to do the same thing that we did with that other one. I'm actually going to cut off this larger core. I'm throwing it in my bowl to get rid of. I don't put cabbage in my veggie scrap bag because it tends to be a little bit more bitter and not make a very good broth. I cut off the tip just because it seemed a little wilted there. And then we are going to cut carefully down the center. And again, you can see that core there. And then we are just going to cut in a V to remove that core. So most recipes, when they're calling for diced cabbage or sliced cabbage for like a slaw, or for a salad or for a soup, you're going to want to remove that core. The only time I wouldn't remove the core is if you're doing the cabbage steak. So here we are. We've got some really nice cabbage. These cabbages can be used interchangeably between recipes. Today I am going to say you do a recipe, but kind of use it like a little bit of an exit strategy, I guess you could say. I'm going to set these aside over here. So we talk about exit strategies a lot in our CSA, which is kind of a way to use up veggies, maybe a lot of them at one time, when you need to use them up. And so a lot of times we talk about freezing, and if you've been watching our videos for a while, we try to give you some good meal templates, like sheet pan meals or skillet meals, to kind of help with that. One that a lot of people talk about are like crock pot meals or instant pot meals. And so today I'm going to actually prep one of those, and I'm going to freeze it. So I'm going to prep like a beef and cabbage soup, and I'm going to freeze it in a Ziploc bag, so that way it will be good a few months from now for me to throw into my Instant Pot or into my crock pot. I thought that would be something a little bit different that we haven't necessarily talked about yet. So I have a freezer safe Ziploc bag on here, and normally if you wanted to preserve your cabbage, if you just needed to use it up or preserve it for the winter, you would want to blanch it before you were going to freeze it. So blanching the cabbage is going to preserve it in your freezer for 6-8 months, if not longer. We have several videos on blanching. Because I am not blanching this spinach before I add it to this crock pot meal, it's not going to be good for quite as long, probably about 3 months. So I'm going to make sure that I put that on my back. This is a beef and cabbage soup. I'm actually using ground turkey, so you could sub out whatever kind of meat you wanted to. You could make this more of a veggie-based soup and add some more vegetables and not necessarily add the animal protein. So today it's July, so I've got till October. So I'm actually going to put a use by date of like October 20th. So I know I've got about 3 months to kind of use this up. So my ingredients are going to be a pound of ground beef or ground turkey. You could also use pork if you wanted to, or again, you could definitely make this vegan or vegetarian by adding some more vegetables. So I'm going to put that meat in this bag. And then 1 small cabbage, sliced or diced up. This is going to be the cabbage soup, so I'm not going to dice this up super fine. I tend to like the larger pieces. It said a small cabbage. That was a pretty large half there, and I want to be cautious of the other ingredients that I have to add to this. So I think that's going to be good. And then 1 onion. This is actually a really easy recipe. It just has a few ingredients. 1 onion diced up. 4 cloves of garlic diced up. I've got those here. 4 carrots. I don't quite have 4. I have my fun Shared Legacy Farms Dragon Rainbow carrots, or Red Dragon carrots. So I've got those. It called for 1 small can, or like a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. So this is going to be a little bit more than that, but I think I might just use it all because I've got a lot of stuff in here. I've got a couple of bay leaves I'm going to throw in. And it called for about a teaspoon of salt and a little bit of pepper. So that's it. I just made dinner for myself, well, for my family, for a few months from now, really quickly and really easily. So when I freeze this bag, I don't want to freeze it flat because when it's frozen, it's not all probably going to fit into my crock pot. Obviously, if it's all flat, but if it's in this nice thing like this, it's going to fit much better. I'll be able to take it out of the bag and just put this big frozen cabbage meal in my crock pot. The only thing I'll need to add when I go to actually make this soup a few months from now are 4 cups of broth. So I'm going to put that on my bag. So I'm going to say add 4 cups broth. And that's all I'm going to have to do. So I've got 1 pound of ground meat in here, about 1 small cut up cabbage, a can of diced tomatoes, some onions, some carrots, some garlic, a bay leaf, and that's pretty much it. This is going to go in my freezer, and then I'm going to be able to throw it in my crock pot for 4 to 6 hours and have a really nice, delicious soup. Or I could also throw it in my Instant Pot, which is kind of like the coolest pressure cooker or a great kitchen appliance we'll talk about. And it'll probably just take under an hour in that. So fantastic way to kind of preserve cabbage is to make a quick cabbage soup that you'll be able to eat later on. So freezing it, blanching it, freezing it for a crock pot meal or an Instant Pot meal later on. We can also eat it cooked by making our cabbage steaks, or roasting it, you could say. We're going to stir fry some, which is one of my favorite ways to actually eat it. I'll wait until the end to do that. Let's do our raw version first. So cabbage, the other really popular thing in our CSA group to do with cabbage is to make slaws. One of my favorite cabbage type salads is like an Asian chicken salad. So cabbage is fantastic for like fish tacos, sauerkraut, coleslaw, kimchi. You've got a ton of different options. If you've never had any of those, you can always just dice it up really fine or run it through your food processor to shred it and add it to really any basic salads. It is loaded with vitamin C, almost as much as citrus fruit. So just because it's not super colorful doesn't mean it's not nutritious. It's actually part of the cruciferous vegetable family like broccoli and kale, Brussels sprouts, which means that it's really high in some nutrients that have been shown to really be anti-cancer. So definitely a great veggie to add. So this is my Asian chicken salad. It's kind of my go-to during CSA season because a lot of times we have a lot of the veggies that go in it. So in the actual salad, we usually have one chopped up cabbage. The Caraflex cabbage that we got this week in our box does really, really well in a lot of these raw recipes, like a slaw or something like that. So I'm going to chop up a little bit more cabbage. I already have some chopped up here. I also added a little bit of finely chopped broccoli because I had some and I figured it would go nice in this recipe. I also made sure that I chopped up the broccoli leaves super fine. So when I use broccoli raw in a recipe, I like to chop it up really fine or even run it through my food processor. So I'm going to have one cabbage. I'll dice up the rest of these. I'm also going to have some carrots that you could either shred or chop up finely. I just chopped up these red dragon carrots. Did not put them through my food processor. So a cup or two of carrots. I'm adding some chicken. This is like an Asian chicken salad, but you don't have to add chicken. I've also got about a half a cup, maybe a little bit more, of diced cilantro. Oh. Quick. Turned off my oven, but let's quick check these cabbage flakes. They are looking good. See, the color is getting a little bit brighter. A little brighter green. Oh, they are kind of falling apart. Turn that one, turn this end one. That one kind of fell apart. The center's okay. I guess you don't really have to turn them. I kind of like to turn them, but pop those back in there for another 10 minutes and they should be done. Alright, so in this raw chicken or Asian chicken salad, we've got one head of cabbage, we've got a couple cups of carrots chopped up, some cilantro. I added broccoli, although the recipe doesn't technically call for broccoli. You could also use some red cabbage in this if you wanted. I've got some chicken, and that's really, for the most part, the base of the actual salad. And then we are going to make the dressing. Because this salad has cabbage, which is kind of like a heartier vegetable, I actually think it does best when made the day before you want to serve it. So I would want to serve this tomorrow. Not that I couldn't serve it today, but a lot of those slaws, when they have like some sugar, some vinegar, the cabbage, they do best when everything can kind of marinate together for a little while. And this is a pretty big salad, and it will be good for 4 to 5 days, so not in any rush to eat it, which is nice. Alright, so we've got all of that fun stuff in here. In our dressing, I've got some bunching onions chopped up pretty fine. Got those a few weeks ago in our CSA box. I'm also going to add a few tablespoons of fresh chopped up ginger. I'm a fan of ginger, so I tend to use a little bit extra. And then the rest of this I'm going to kind of eyeball with the measuring side on this mason jar, so I don't have to keep on measuring everything out. So we're going to use about 1/4 cup of soy sauce, or I'm going to use coconut aminos today. Sarah, a member of our CSA, says your Asian cabbage salad rocks. Thank you. It is like one of my favorite things to bring to parties. So I'm using coconut aminos, which is like a soy sauce substitute that doesn't have soy. It is a lot lower in sodium. It's still considered like a fermented food from coconut. Pretty popular in our house. So about 1/4 cup of coconut aminos or soy sauce. I'm using a little bit more because I've added some volume to this salad with a lot more veggies. And then about the same amount of wine vinegar. You can use white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, whatever you maybe have. A couple tablespoons of like a garlicky hoisin sauce if you want. A few tablespoons of olive oil. A little bit of sriracha or like a chili sauce, which I have back here. And I did not get sesame oil out, but we do have some. So just like a teaspoon of sesame oil, just a little bit. I'm fairly comfortable not measuring things out perfectly. So I'm going to mix this dressing up. This is also something sometimes I make ahead of time, like just to have the dressing aside if I don't have time to cut all the veggies up right away. I'm going to pour it over. Set this over here. And I'm going to give this a good stir. So this is a really versatile salad. Again, you could definitely add some other veggies in if you wanted to. It's kind of, I guess you could say, one of my exit strategies during CSA season, because I tend to be able to use like 3 or 4 types of veggies from my box in it sometimes. So if you had more carrots, you could have more carrots. If you didn't have broccoli, no big deal. You could add some red cabbage. So super colorful, easy, fun salad. Good for 4 to 5 days in your fridge. Great way to use up your cabbage. Definitely one of my go-tos all summer long. All right, so raw, fantastic, slaws, cabbages, fish tacos, all that fun stuff. Cooking, soups, we prepped the soup ahead of time. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to stir fry some cabbage, and this is a recipe that's in our ebook. It's like a spicy type cabbage. I've just got 1 cabbage finely chopped up here, like we demoed. We're going to put a little bit of oil. You could also add onions to this recipe. I'm not going to today. I'm actually using a little bit of bacon grease. We're going to heat this up. And I'm going to actually have this for lunch with some fried eggs. So all we need is our cabbage, whatever oil you want to cook with or fat you want to cook with. I'm going to use some chili sauce today. You don't have to if you don't like it hot. A little bit of salt and pepper, and I've got some red chili flakes. Fennel would go really well with this recipe. Garlic, you could add some garlic. You could even add some ginger. I might even add a little bit of soy sauce or coconut aminos to kind of go with it. So we are going to heat this up. Add this cabbage once it gets hot. Make sure no one has any questions or anything. Nope. All right, so we will add our cabbage. You can kind of hear it start to sizzle there. The burner gets really hot really fast. So if I wanted to add garlic or onions, I would have added them right when I right before I added the cabbage. But I'm going to let this cabbage cook for a second. Again, you could do this with your red cabbage, you could do it with the green cabbage, the Caraflex cabbage, you could probably even do this with the Chinese cabbage. So a lot of those things you can use interchangeably. If I were buying cabbage at the store, I would definitely prefer the red, the green, or the Caraflex because they're going to store longer in my fridge compared to that standard white cabbage or Chinese cabbage. So this is starting to cook down a little bit, or to wilt a little bit, and it's also getting brighter in color, a little bit brighter green. You could add bacon to this. I think a lot of our CSA members like to add bacon, by no means have to. I like to get a veggie in for breakfast, so frying up some cabbage with some bacon or sausage might kind of be a good idea. Alright, so this is cooking pretty nicely. I am going to add a little bit of chili sauce. Again, if you don't like spicy food, you by no means have to. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. A little bit of chili flakes, or red pepper flakes, sorry. You could also add other vegetables to this. So you could add some broccoli to it. Some carrots. Stir fries are fantastic with a ton of cabbage, whether you add rice or noodles, whatever you want to add. And I'm going to finish it off with a little bit of coconut aminos. Turn this down. Yay! Going to take my cabbage steaks out. They're looking pretty good. So I do want to show you before I sign off what this looks like. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and throw a couple eggs in here, fry up the eggs in the same pan as the cabbage, and kind of have that as a fast little lunch. I mean, that took under 5 minutes, I think, right? So you can see we've got some nice, colorful, spicy cabbage. Excited about this. All right, well, that is it for our cabbage tutorial. I hope you picked up something, maybe a new way to eat some cabbage. Post comments or what you like to use the cabbage for and below this video, and we'll check back and make sure we get back to them. Check out our ebook. The link will also be in the comments below this video. So thank you so much for joining us. This is Katie, your CSA coach with Shared Legacy Farms, and I hope you have a great day.